Fleur-de-lis #CyberLaw. Module 2. Constitutional and Human Rights Issues in Cyberspace. Open Book Stage 1. Reading 4 Curiosity. Crescent Moon Part 1 White Heart. Hermione Granger Library Mode. First reading is not for memorizing. First reading is not for writing answers. First reading is simply for becoming familiar with the landscape. Imagine Hermione opening a brand new subject, adjusting her stack of books, and asking one question: what is this module actually trying to teach me? Glowing star. What is Module 2 really about? When most students hear CyberLaw, they immediately think about personal computer hacking, police car light cybercrimes, mobile phone social media offenses, closed lock with key data breaches. But Module 2 asks a completely different question. The real question of Module 2. Can human rights survive in a digital world? Because whenever technology grows, two things happen simultaneously. Sparkles opportunities increase. Warning risks increase. Globe with meridians. Why this module exists. Imagine showing the Constitution of India to someone living in 1950. They would understand. Newspapers. Microphone public speeches. Postbox letters. House physical privacy. Books traditional access to information. But they would never imagine. Mobile phone social media. Speech balloon instant messaging. Cloud storage. Robot face algorithms. Floppy disk massive data collection. Globe showing Europe-Africa global digital networks. Yet the Constitution continues to govern society even as society changes. This creates one of the most fascinating questions in modern law. Can constitutional principles drafted for a physical world successfully govern a digital world? Much of modern cyber jurisprudence is an attempt to answer that question. The Internet allows people to speaking head express opinions. Books access information. Busts in silhouette communicate globally. Mobile phone build communities. But the same Internet can also police car light invade privacy. Police car light spread misinformation. Police car light collect personal data. Police car light restrict digital access. Therefore, Module 2 is really about the relationship between bust-in silhouette individual rights and classical building #state regulation. Inside. Globe with meridians cyberspace. Map the roadmap of Module 2. Think of this module as a journey. Speaking head freedom. Down arrow. Construction sign restrictions. Down arrow. Lock privacy. Down arrow. Floppy disk data protection. Down arrow. Globe with meridians digital access. Everything in the module follows this sequence. Speaking head 1. Freedom of speech and expression. Imagine living in a world where you could not express an opinion online. No posts. No comments. No blogs. No videos. No criticism of public authorities. The Internet has become one of the largest platforms for expression in human history. Today people express themselves through mobile phone social media, movie camera videos, memo blogs, microphone podcasts, speech balloon messaging platforms. Because of this transformation, freedom of speech is no longer confined to newspapers and public meetings. It now exists inside cyberspace. Constitutional connection. In India, freedom of speech and expression is protected by Scales Article 19, 1a of the Constitution of India. Traditionally this right protected newspapers, books publications, microphone public speeches. Today it also protects mobile phone tweets, speech balloon posts, movie camera online content, globe with meridians digital communication. Speaking head the democratization of expression. For much of history, large-scale communication was controlled by institutions, publishing houses, newspapers, television networks, radio stations. Only a limited number of people could reach large audiences. Cyberspace changed this relationship dramatically. Today an individual with a smartphone can communicate with thousands or even millions of people. The Internet therefore represents one of the greatest expansions of expressive power in human history. This transformation strengthened freedom of expression but also created new legal challenges concerning misinformation, abuse, manipulation, and harmful content. This is the kind of why the topic became important discussion that PIL constantly uses. First reading thought. When studying cyber law, always remember, the Internet is not merely technology. It is also a platform for exercising constitutional rights. Construction sign 2. Restrictions. At first glance, students often think, if freedom exists, why should there be restrictions? This is where constitutional law becomes interesting. No democratic society grants absolute freedom. Every right operates within limits. Imagine. Someone spreads false information causing panic. Someone publishes hate speech. Someone incites violence through social media. Someone shares harmful content affecting national security. Should the state remain silent? Obviously not. Therefore, freedom and regulation must exist together. Constitutional connection. The Constitution allows reasonable restrictions through scales Article 19, 2. Restrictions may relate to classical building sovereignty and integrity of India. Scales public order. Handshake-friendly relations with foreign states. Shield security of the state. Scroll contempt of court. Police car light incitement to offences. Performing arts defamation. Herb morality and decency. First reading thought. Cyber law constantly balances two competing values. Speaking head freedom. And shield protection. Lock 3. Right to privacy. Now we move from expression to protection. Imagine your entire life stored digitally. Mobile phone messages. Camera with flash photos. Credit card banking records. Hospital medical records. Round pushpin location data. Every click creates information. Every search leaves a trace. Every digital activity produces data. This raises an important question. Does a person have the right to keep personal information private? The answer today is yes. Privacy has become one of the most important human rights in the digital age. Why privacy matters? Privacy protects. Bust in silhouette individual autonomy. White heart human dignity. Personal choices. House private life. Without privacy, people may fear surveillance. People may hesitate to speak freely. People may lose control over personal information. Constitutional development. Privacy gained historic recognition through Scales Justice K.S. Puttaswamy v. Union of India, 2017. The Supreme Court recognized privacy as a fundamental right under Scales Article 21. First reading thought. Privacy is no longer merely about physical space. It is increasingly about digital space. Floppy disk 4. Right to data protection. Privacy and data protection are connected, but they are not identical. Many students confuse them. Think of it this way. Privacy asks, black ? Ornament, should information about me remain protected? Data protection asks, black ? Ornament, how should my information be collected, stored, used, and shared? Modern organizations collect enormous amounts of data. Examples: banks, hospitals, shopping trolley e-commerce platforms, mobile phone social media companies, classical building government authorities. Because data has economic value, misuse becomes possible. Potential risks: police car light data breaches, police car light unauthorized sharing, police car light profiling, police car light identity theft, police car light surveillance. Therefore, modern legal systems increasingly focus on regulating personal data. First reading thought. Privacy protects the person. Data protection regulates the information. Globe with Meridians 5. Right to access cyberspace. This is perhaps the most modern topic in the module. Think carefully. Many aspects of modern life now require internet access. Examples: books, education, banking, briefcase employment, classical building / government services, healthcare, mobile phone communication. Without internet access, a person may struggle to participate fully in society. This has led scholars around the world to ask, is access to cyberspace becoming a basic human necessity? The question is still evolving. But one thing is clear. Digital exclusion can create social exclusion. In today's world, limited internet access may mean cross-mark limited information, cross-mark limited opportunities, cross-mark limited participation. Perfect. For CyberLaw, Module 2, Stage 1, Read for Curiosity, I would not insert these throughout the chapter. I would place them at the very end of Part 1, after your existing Hermione's first reading summary. These editions are designed specifically to give the module the same intellectual depth that your private international law notes have. Crescent Moon Edition 1 Globe with Meridians, the Great Digital Transformation. For most of human history, constitutional rights were exercised in physical spaces. People spoke in public meetings. They wrote letters. They gathered in communities. They read newspapers. They stored personal information in physical documents. The emergence of cyberspace transformed each of these activities. Communication became digital. Information became digital. Relationships became digital. Commerce became digital. Governance increasingly became digital. Yet one important question remained. When society enters a digital environment, do constitutional rights remain behind, or do they travel with the individual? Modern cyber law answers. Rights do not disappear. They adapt. Much of Module 2 is the story of that adaptation. Crescent Moon Edition 2 Bust in Silhouette, the Digital Citizen. Traditional constitutional law often imagined a citizen interacting with the state in physical spaces. Modern cyber law introduces a new figure. The digital citizen. A person who. Mobile phone communicates online. Floppy disk creates digital data. Globe with Meridians participates in online communities. Classical building / accesses government services electronically. Credit card conducts digital transactions. The digital citizen enjoys many opportunities, but also faces new vulnerabilities. Module 2 examines how constitutional and human rights respond to this new reality. Crescent Moon Edition 3 Scales / the central constitutional tension. Every topic in this module can be traced back to one recurring tension. On one side stands speaking head liberty, freedom, privacy, autonomy, individual choice. On the other side stands classical building / regulation, security, public order, governance, collective welfare. A democratic society cannot completely sacrifice either side. Too much freedom may permit harm. Too much regulation may suppress liberty. The challenge of cyber law is therefore not choosing one side. It is maintaining a constitutional balance between both. Crescent Moon Edition 4 Left-Pointing Magnifying Glass, the New Meaning of Privacy. Historically, privacy was often associated with physical space. A person's home, personal correspondence, private conversations, physical records. The digital age expanded this understanding dramatically. Today personal information may reveal round pushpin location, open book reading habits, musical note preferences, shopping trolley purchases, mobile phone behavior patterns, speech balloon communications. Privacy therefore increasingly concerns control over information rather than merely protection of physical space. This transformation explains why privacy occupies such an important place in modern cyber law. Crescent Moon Edition 5 Floppy disk. Why data became a legal concern. Data has become one of the most valuable resources in modern society. Governments rely on data. Businesses rely on data. Digital platforms rely on data. Public services increasingly rely on data. As information gained economic and social value, concerns regarding lock consent, lock collection, lock storage, lock sharing, lock misuse became legal concerns. Data protection law emerged as a response to this new informational reality. Crescent Moon Edition 6 Globe showing Europe-Africa the new digital divide. Earlier generations often focused on money bag economic inequality, books educational inequality, hospitals social inequality. The digital age introduced another concern: digital inequality. Two individuals may possess similar abilities, yet one may have meaningful internet access while the other does not. One may participate fully in digital society. The other may remain excluded from opportunities. This raises an important question. Can meaningful participation in modern society occur without meaningful access to cyberspace? The growing importance of this question explains the increasing attention given to digital access rights. Crescent Moon Edition 7, how this module connects with the entire subject. Module I introduced Globe with Meridian's cyberspace, and explained how society entered the digital world. Module 2 asks, Bust in silhouette, what rights do individuals possess inside that digital world? Module 3 will ask, Police car light, what happens when those rights are violated? Module 4 will ask, Scales hash, how does the Information Technology Act respond? Module V will ask, Globe showing Europe-Africa, how are disputes resolved in a borderless environment? Thus Module 2 acts as the bridge between the creation of cyberspace and the protection of individuals within cyberspace. Crescent Moon Edition 8 Hermione's hidden theme. Many students believe this module is about freedom of speech, privacy, data protection, access to cyberspace. Separately, the deeper reality is different. All of these topics revolve around a single question. How can human dignity, liberty, and autonomy be preserved after human life increasingly moves into digital space? Every topic in this module is ultimately an attempt to answer that question. And that question quietly unites the entire module. This is exactly the sort of ending section that gives notes the private international law feeling. Not more facts, but a larger intellectual framework that ties all the topics together. First reading thought. The debate is gradually shifting from, should people use the internet? To, can people effectively exercise their rights without internet access? Classical building # the silent expansion of constitutional law. One of the most remarkable developments of modern law is that constitutional rights have not remained fixed. They have expanded into new environments. The Constitution originally governed relationships occurring primarily in physical society. Today, constitutional principles increasingly operate within Globe with Meridian's cyberspace, mobile phone digital platforms, floppy disk information networks, robot face emerging technologies. CyberLaw therefore does not replace constitutional law. Instead, it represents constitutional law entering a new frontier. The story of Module 2 is ultimately the story of how old constitutional values adapt to new technological realities. Glowing star Hermione's grand observation. Every era forces law to confront a new challenge. Property law emerged because people owned land. Commercial law expanded because trade expanded. International law developed because nations increasingly interacted across borders. Cyber law emerged because human activity increasingly moved into cyberspace. The fundamental challenge is not technological. It is legal and human. The real question is, how can liberty, dignity, privacy, and democratic values be preserved when human life increasingly exists in digital form? Module 2 is ultimately an exploration of that question. Every topic in this module is simply one part of the answer. Hermione's first reading summary. Imagine Module 2 as a constitutional story. Speaking head freedom of speech. Gives people a voice. Down arrow. Construction sign restrictions. Prevent abuse of that voice. Down arrow. Lock privacy. Protects personal life. Down arrow. Floppy disk data protection. Protects personal information. Down arrow. Globe with Meridian's access to cyberspace. Ensures participation in the digital world. White Heart Module 2, Stage 1, Part 1 complete. Curiosity anchors open sparkles. Check mark button freedom of speech and expression. Check mark button restrictions. Check mark button right to privacy. Check mark button right to data protection. Check mark button right to access cyberspace. Crescent moon next step. Stage 1, Part 2. We will revisit the same topics more deeply, exploring scroll constitutional foundations. Scales # human rights dimensions. Globe with meridians digital age challenges. Real-world examples. White heart the hidden connections between all 5 topics. Before moving to Stage 2, reading for understanding. White heart. Fleur-de-lis # CyberLaw. Module 2. Constitutional and human rights issues in cyberspace. Open book Stage 1. First reading, Part 1. Hermione Granger Library Mode. Read for curiosity. Read to understand the landscape before memorizing anything. Before we start throwing around articles, judgments, and constitutional theories, let's do what every good law student should do: understand the story first. Constitutional rights did not disappear when humanity entered cyberspace. They simply followed us there. Today we begin Module 2. And unlike Module I, which focused on computers and cyberspace itself, Module 2 focuses on something much more important: human beings inside cyberspace. The central question of this module is: globe with meridians. When people move into the digital world, do their constitutional rights move with them? The answer is check mark button yes. The Constitution does not stop at the edge of a computer screen. Classical building # the big idea of Module 2. Think of Module 2 as one giant constitutional journey. The journey. Bust in silhouette human being. Down arrow. Computer monitor # uses internet. Down arrow. Globe with meridians enters cyberspace. Down arrow. Speaking head speaks online. Down arrow. Lock shares personal information. Down arrow. Mobile phone creates digital identity. Down arrow. Scales # needs constitutional protection. Everything in this module grows from this chain. Speaking head 1. Freedom of speech and expression. What does freedom of speech mean? Imagine you have an opinion. You want to. Writing hand # write an article. Movie camera upload a video. Mobile phone post on social media. Memo publish a blog. Classical building # criticize the government. Handshake support a political movement. The Constitution protects your ability to express those thoughts. Under Article 19, 1a of the Constitution of India, every citizen enjoys freedom of speech and expression. This is one of the most important democratic freedoms. Without free expression, a democracy weakens. A public debate disappears. Our accountability suffers. How does this right enter cyberspace? Originally, speech happened through newspapers, microphone public speeches, books, radio. Today speech happens through mobile phone Instagram, speech balloon WhatsApp, flying bird social media platforms, movie camera YouTube, memo blogs, microphone # podcasts. The medium changed. The right did not. A tweet can be speech. A reel can be speech. A meme can be speech. A blog can be speech. A podcast can be speech. A YouTube video can be speech. Hermione's observation. Many students make a mistake. They think internet law and constitutional law are different. Not really. Cyber law often asks a constitutional question. Can the state regulate digital speech without violating Article 19, 1a? That is why freedom of expression sits at the heart of cyber law. Globe with meridians. Why digital speech is different. In the physical world, a speech reaches hundreds, maybe thousands. In cyberspace, a single post can reach. Globe showing Europe, Africa, millions of people. Globe showing Americas, multiple countries. Scales # multiple legal systems. Within minutes. This creates entirely new constitutional challenges. Example. Imagine a person uploads one controversial video. Within hours. Chart increasing, it becomes viral. Globe showing Europe, Africa, it crosses national boundaries. Busts in silhouette, different groups react. Classical building # governments become concerned. Suddenly a simple act of speech becomes. Scales # a constitutional issue. Globe showing Europe-Africa an international issue. Personal computer a cyber law issue. All at the same time. Scroll the importance of online speech. Freedom of expression performs several democratic functions. 1. Search for truth. Ideas compete with one another. Society identifies better ideas through discussion. 2. Political participation. Citizens participate in governance. They can. Classical building # criticize policies. Scales # support reforms. Speech balloon discuss public affairs. 3. Self-development. People express identity, beliefs, and personality. Expression helps individuals grow. 4. Democratic accountability. Governments remain answerable when citizens can speak freely. Globe showing Europe-Africa the digital revolution of expression. The Internet transformed speech in 3 major ways. A. Anyone can become a publisher. Earlier, publishing required newspapers or media houses. Now, anyone with a smartphone can publish information. B. Information travels instantly. Traditional communication took days. Digital communication takes seconds. C. Global audience. A message posted in Kolkata can be read in India. Flag United States, United States. Flag United Kingdom. Japanese, Japan. Almost instantly. Scales # the constitutional question. As cyberspace expanded, a major legal question emerged. Can online speech receive the same constitutional protection as offline speech? Indian constitutional jurisprudence increasingly treats online expression as an extension of Article 19, 1a. The platform changes. The constitutional value remains. Hermione's first reading summary. If you remember nothing else from today's reading, remember this. Module 2 starts with one fundamental idea. Human rights do not disappear online. The first and most important digital constitutional right is speaking / freedom of speech and expression. Protected by Scales # Article 19, 1a. And in cyberspace this freedom includes mobile phone social media posts, memo blogs, movie camera videos, microphone / podcasts, speech balloon online discussions, globe with meridians digital communication, glowing star memory preview 4 stage 3. Don't memorize yet. Just notice the pattern. Human being, internet, expression, rights, constitutional protection. That single chain is the foundation of the entire module. White Heart Module 2, Stage 1, Part 1, complete. Covered. Check mark button Introduction to Constitutional Rights in Cyberspace. Check mark button Meaning of freedom of speech and expression. Check mark button Article 19, 1a. Check mark button Digital speech and online expression. Check mark button Importance of free speech in democracy. Check mark button Cyberspace as a constitutional space. Crescent Moon Part 2 will continue with Scales # restrictions on speech. Lock Introduction to privacy. Globe with meridians transition from expression rights to privacy rights in cyberspace. White Heart sparkles. Fleur-de-lis # CyberLaw. Module 2. Constitutional and human rights issues in cyberspace. Open Book Stage 1. First Reading, Part 2, Final Part. Hermione Granger Library Mode. Read for curiosity. No memorization yet. Simply understand the story. Now that we understand freedom of speech in cyberspace, we must confront an equally important question. If the internet allows us to speak, who protects us from being watched while we speak? This is where Module 2 becomes truly fascinating. The first half of the module was about speaking / expression. The second half is about lock protection. Scales # 2. Restrictions on freedom of speech. Many students think freedom of speech means I can say absolutely anything I want. Constitutional law disagrees. No democracy grants unlimited freedom. Rights exist. But rights must coexist with social order. The constitutional position. Article 19, 1. A. Down arrow. Gives freedom of speech. Down arrow. Article 19, 2. Down arrow. Permits reasonable restrictions. This means the Constitution protects expression but also allows the state to regulate harmful expression under specific circumstances. Why restrictions exist? Imagine a world with absolutely no restrictions. People could. Police car light spread fake bomb threats. Warning incite violence. Shield # promote terrorism. Bust in silhouette defame others. Globe showing Europe Africa creates social unrest. Democracy would become chaos. Therefore constitutional law balances. Speaking head liberty. And scales # public interest. Important grounds of restriction. Remember these only as concepts for now. Restrictions may be imposed in the interests of classical building # sovereignty and integrity of India. Shield # security of the state. Globe showing Europe Africa friendly relations with foreign states. Loudspeaker public order. Decency and morality. Scales # contempt of court. Bust in silhouette defamation. Police car light incitement to an offense. CyberLaw connection. The internet amplifies speech. A rumor once spread among dozens. Today it may spread among millions. Therefore cyberspace increases both. Check mark button the power of expression. And warning the risk of harm. Lock 3. Right to privacy. The central question. Freedom asks, can I speak? Privacy asks, can I be left alone? Every day we generate digital information. We reveal mobile phone numbers, round pushpin locations, camera with flash photographs, speech balloon conversations, credit card financial information, hospital medical records. Most people think these are merely pieces of information. Legally, they are pieces of identity. Privacy in cyberspace. Before the digital age, privacy usually meant house protection of home, scroll protection of personal papers. Today privacy also means floppy disk protection of data, mobile phone protection of digital behavior, globe with meridians protection of online identity. Why privacy matters. Without privacy, people begin to fear surveillance. Without privacy, freedom becomes weaker. Without privacy, autonomy becomes an illusion. Hermione's observation. Freedom and privacy are not enemies. They are partners. Expression allows individuals to speak. Privacy allows individuals to think before speaking. A democratic society requires both. File dividers #4. Right to data protection. What is data? Data is information relating to a person. Examples. Name, address, email, Aadhaar details, financial records, biometric information. Why data became important. In the industrial age, land was valuable. In the manufacturing age, factories were valuable. In the information age, data became valuable. Many technology companies function through data collection. Governments also maintain enormous databases. Therefore the question arises, who controls personal information? Data protection means protecting personal information from police car light unauthorized access, police car light misuse, police car light manipulation, police car light leakage, police car light commercial exploitation. CyberLaw connection. The more digital society grows. Down arrow. The more personal information is collected. Down arrow. The greater the risk of misuse. Down arrow. The stronger the demand for legal safeguards. Globe with meridians 5. Right to access cyberspace. This is the newest and most modern idea in the entire module. Earlier generations debated. Books access to education. Ballot box # access to democracy. Scales # access to justice. Modern society increasingly debates. Globe with meridians access to the internet. Why access matters. Today the internet is used for Open book education. Bank banking. Briefcase employment. Classical building / government services. Healthcare. Loudspeaker public participation. Without digital access, a person may become excluded from important aspects of modern life. The modern constitutional debate. The question is no longer, is the internet useful? The question is, can meaningful participation in modern society occur without internet access? This debate has made access to cyberspace an important human rights discussion worldwide. Classical building / the constitutional journey of Module 2. Notice the story carefully. Bust in silhouette human being. Down arrow. Speaking head freedom of speech. Down arrow. Scales / reasonable restrictions. Down arrow. Lock privacy. Down arrow. Floppy disk data protection. Down arrow. Globe with Meridian's access to cyberspace. Down arrow. Classical building / constitutional protection in the digital age. This is the entire module in one chain. Hermione's first reading master summary. Module 2 is not really about computers. It is about people. Specifically, it asks, how do constitutional rights survive in a digital world? The answer appears through 5 pillars. Speaking head freedom of speech and expression. Scales / reasonable restrictions. Lock right to privacy. Floppy disk right to data protection. Globe with Meridian's right to access cyberspace. Together they form the constitutional foundation of CyberLaw. White Hat Module 2, Stage 1 complete. Topics covered. Check mark button freedom of speech and expression. Check mark button restrictions on speech. Check mark button right to privacy. Check mark button right to data protection. Check mark button right to access cyberspace. Next stage. Stage 2, Reading for Understanding. Where Hermione starts connecting everything together. Speech left and right arrow privacy left and right arrow data left and right arrow internet access left and right arrow constitutional democracy. That is where the real legal reasoning begins. Scales / books. White Hat sparkles. Fleur-de-lis / Module 2, The 3 golden case anchors. Hermione Granger library margin notes. Before moving to stage 2, there are 3 golden constitutional anchors that Hermione would scribble in the margin of her notes with 3 different colored inks because they connect almost the entire module. Speaking head 1. Speech anchor. Scales / Shreya Singhal vs. Union of India, 2015. Remember the story. Government attempted to regulate online speech through Section 66A of the IT Act, 2000. The provision punished sending information that was a grossly offensive, a annoying, a inconvenient, a menacing. The problem? These expressions were vague. Different authorities could interpret them differently. This created fear among citizens. People began avoiding lawful expression online. This is called snowflake chilling effect. Meaning, people silence themselves because they fear punishment. The Supreme Court struck down Section 66A. Memory formula. Free speech plus vague law equals unconstitutional. Keyword. Snowflake chilling effect. Why examiners love this case? Because it proves. Globe with Meridian's online speech. Equals. Newspaper speech. Equals. Microphone public speech. All receive constitutional protection under Article 19, 1, A. Lock 2. Privacy anchor. Scales / KS Putterswamy vs. Union of India, 2017. This is the constitutional backbone of modern cyber law. Before Putterswamy, privacy existed indirectly. After Putterswamy, privacy became an officially recognized fundamental right. The Supreme Court held. Privacy is part of Article 21. Right to life and personal liberty. Hermione would underline one sentence here. Privacy is not merely secrecy. It is control over personal choices and personal information. This transformed cyberlaw. Because now, mobile phone mobile data, credit card banking data, round pushpin location data, biometric data, camera with flash personal images, became constitutional concerns. Memory formula. Privacy equals dignity plus autonomy plus control. The golden triangle. Putterswamy connects. Bust-in silhouette individual dignity. Down arrow. Lock privacy. Down arrow. Floppy disk data protection. Down arrow. Scales # constitutional protection. Globe with meridians 3. Internet access anchor. Scales # Anuradha Basin vs Union of India, 2020. This case emerged from internet shutdowns. The court confronted a modern constitutional question. Can the state indefinitely suspend internet access? The court's answer was extremely important. The court recognized that freedom of speech, Article 19, 1a, and freedom of trade and profession, Article 19, 1g, are exercised through the Internet in modern society. The court did not say, Internet access is an absolute right. But it did say, government restrictions must satisfy constitutional standards. Scales # the proportionality idea. This becomes crucial in Stage 2. Hermione would write, not every restriction is unconstitutional. But every restriction must be check mark button necessary, check mark button reasonable, check mark button proportionate, check mark button legally justified. Memory trigger. Restriction not equal to violation. Only an excessive restriction becomes unconstitutional. Classical building # the constitutional triangle of Module 2. Draw this in your mind. Speaking head. Freedom of speech. Shreya Singhal. Lock privacy globe with meridians access. Putterswamy. Anuradha Basin. Scales # digital. Democracy. Hermione's master connection. Most students study Module 2 topic by topic. Hermione would not. She would see one single constitutional story. Step 1. A citizen enters cyberspace. Down arrow. Step 2. The citizen speaks. Speaking head Article 19, 1a. Down arrow. Step 3. The citizen generates personal data. Lock Article 21 privacy. Down arrow. Step 4. The state regulates cyberspace. Scales # Article 19, 2. Down arrow. Step 5. Courts ensure the regulation remains proportionate. Classical building # constitutional review. Glowing star Stage 1 is now completely locked. You should now be able to answer. Black ? Ornament. What is freedom of speech in cyberspace? Black ? Ornament. Why can it be restricted? Black ? Ornament. What is the right to privacy? Black ? Ornament. Why is data protection important? Black ? Ornament. Why is internet access becoming a constitutional issue? Black ? Ornament. Which 3 Supreme Court cases dominate Module 2? With one memory chain. Shreya Singhal, Putterswamy, Anuradha Basin. These are the 3 constitutional pillars that hold up the entire module. The next stage will be much more interesting because Stage 2 is where we stop reading topics separately and start connecting them like a constitutional lawyer. That is where concepts such as scales # the proportionality test, snowflake chilling effect, eye # surveillance, floppy disk data governance, globe with meridians internet shutdowns, classical building # digital constitutionalism, begin to form one integrated framework. White Hart Stage 1 complete. Golden constitutional anchors secured. Check mark button Shreya Singhal vs Union of India, 2015. Check mark button KS Putterswamy vs Union of India, 2017. Check mark button Anuradha Basin vs Union of India, 2020. Memory chain. Speaking head speech, lock privacy, globe with meridians access. Case chain. Scales # Shreya Singhal, Scales # Putterswamy, Scales # Anuradha Basin. Constitutional story. Bust-in silhouette citizen, globe with meridian cyberspace, speaking head expression, lock data scales # regulation, classical building # constitutional review. White Hart, scales # book sparkles. Fleur-de-lis hash 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 fleur-de-lis hash.